Hello and welcome to Bulwell Forest Gardens Let's Get Growing scheme. So this is the second pack that we're going to be talking about today, but before that I want to just look back on what we did with the first pack. So we planted out some garlic, we sowed some broad beans, and we did a lasagna bulb pot. So we're just going to have a look at how they're doing. So the bulbs haven't come up yet, which is to be expected, so they're fine, and we just need to be patient with these. The garlic settled in well, it looks healthy. So these two have both been outside. I've just brought them in to show you into the greenhouse, but they live in outside. So I did get asked questions about that, and they're frost hardy, and the garlic likes cold, and the bulbs are fine with it. So the last thing I'm going to show you is the broad beans. So these have been in the greenhouse and they've had this on to keep the mice out. Now it looks like nothing's happening. There's a little bit of eruption happening here. So we're going to have a look at the bottom, and there's nothing with that one. So you can see a root here. So that means that the seed's germinating, and I think there's another one. There's another one here. So it's, if you're wondering if your seeds are germinating, just have a look at the bottom, and that will be the first sign. Now, I did look at this earlier, and look what I found. So another thing to look out for is slugs hiding out under the bottom of your pots, because when your shoots come up, they'll be eating them. So I don't like killing things, so I'll take that outside and put it on the compost heap, and I'll do that later. So everything's going along fine, and thank you to everybody for all your great updates on the Facebook page. That's fantastic to see what you're all growing. And I know Jo had a problem with the squirrel eating her bulbs, so just make sure you keep that cover on and keep patient until they come up. So today's pack, we're going to start with, you should have a small packet of seeds which says peas. Douche Provence. So this is the variety of pea. It's hardy. You can grow it from February to June or October and November. It's quite suitable for growing in pots because it's compact. So because peas have got deep roots and they don't like to be disturbed once they get growing and germinated, loo roll holders are brilliant for sowing them in. So I've got like a plastic fruit punnets. You could use a mushroom tray. It's important that it's got some holes in the bottom because you don't want them just sitting in wet because they'll rot, so it needs to have some drainage. So I've just put the cardboard tubes into the punnet, and then I'm going to put a little bit of compost into each one. And I'm going to do that with all of them. And here's some I did earlier. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to dib a hole. You don't need a dibber, you can use a pen. So I'm going to dib a hole about 1 inch deep into each tube of compost. And then I've got my seeds here. So what I've done with the seeds is I've soaked them in a little bit of water. So you should have about 20 seeds. And I've soaked them just for an hour in some water, and that's just to soften up the skins to get them to germinate a little bit quicker. So you could try that, but if you haven't got time, you don't have to do that. I'm just trying to speed the process up. So then I'm going to put the seeds into my left palm, and then with my right hand I'm going to take one seed and I'm going to put one seed into each tube. That's it. And then I'm just going to cover them with a bit more compost. And press them down. going to put a label in. And it is good practice to write what variety you've grown. So I've put Douche Provence on there, P. Douche Provence. And the reason is that if I like this variety of P or it does well, I'll remember what varieties. Some varieties won't perform as well, or you might not like the taste as much as others. So it's good to know what you're growing. And then I'm going to put them over here and give them a water with a fine rose on the end. That's it. Okay, so next, you should be able to do, with the number of seeds you've got, you should be able to do 2 trays of them. So the next thing you should have in your pack is a tray of Japanese onion sets. So these varieties of onions are really good in cold weather, so you can plant them now and they'll be ready in June. But they don't store, so you have to eat them. So you don't want to plant too many of them. And there should be a variety of colours, red, white and yellow in your packs. And that's what they look like before they were planted. So if you were going to plant some from sets, you just have to make sure you get them on the right way up. So that's the roots, and that's where the shoot comes out. And so we've planted these with the shoot just above the compost level, so we don't bury them. It wants to be peeping out. So what we're going to do with these is transplant them into a bigger container. You could put them into the ground if you have ground, but I'm sort of going to do them into a pot just to show those of you who don't have ground what you can do with them. So I've got a window box, an old window box, and I'm gonna put in, I've just got some broken bits of tile, an old pot, and I'm just gonna put some of these in the bottom, just for a bit of drainage. And then I've got some, I'm not gonna be too fussy with these, so I'm not gonna use expensive potting compost. I'm gonna use some old compost that I've got. So this is a tub that I grew potatoes in the summer, and it's quite soily, so I'm going to use some of this, but it is actually quite heavy, so I'll put a bit of old potting compost in with it, just to try and lighten it up a bit. There's still a potato in there that I've missed. And I'm going to put a little bit of compost in the top of the potting compost. And you can always put some homemade compost on. I'll give them a feed later if you think there's not enough nutrition. So I've got 8 of these. I'm going to try and transplant them. So you can squeeze the bottom without disturbing them too much. You can see the root system there. I'm going to do a kind of zigzag pattern here. And really with onions, if you plant them too close together, they won't get very big. So they'll sort of, if you could do them a hand's distance apart, that's probably better. But I might not fit them all in here, so I might just go for smaller onions. So I'm just making a hole. Floor in there. Nice wormy there. And there's a red one there, but it hasn't got a shoot on yet, but its roots developed, so it should be fine. And that's it, and we'll let them get settled in. And then I might put a layer of homemade compost on there at a later date. So I'm just going to move that out of the way. And then last but not least, you should have 3 tubs of wildflowers. So the wildflowers, these 2, that's a wildflower mix, which is a cornfield mix. So it's really good for pollinating plants. So it says a buzz of beneficial insects all summer, and it's a hardy perennial. So this is the frost won't bother it, it'll just grow slowly over the winter. So what I'm going to do with these, again, you could put them in the ground, you don't have to do this. Oh, the other ones, sorry, the other one's a cornflower as well. You could put them in the ground, but what I've decided to do is to make my own little mini wildflower area in a pot. And they do grow quite well in pots, but you don't want to be using high quality potting compost because they don't need much nutrition really. So I'm gonna put some mould slates in the bottom just to improve the drainage. And then I'm going to use the old potting compost, small potting compost from some of last year's annuals. And put this in. It's quite heavy, but they won't mind. Okay, so we come to transplant them. I'm just going to leave them. These were pricked out in clumps, and I'm just going to leave them in a clump. So we just turn the pot upside down. You see, it's got a good root system. And what I'm going to do with this is just what's called teasing out. So just gently loosen the roots up. One in there. So I think there's corn marigolds, cornflowers, and maybe corn cockles in this mix. And then we'll go for the other little cornflower. That one's fine. I don't really need to tease that one out. So you don't need to feed these or fuss them too much. And just give them a drink. I think that's it. So yeah, enjoy your gardening and keep sending us photos and updates of how you're getting on, and if you've got any problems you can post them on the Facebook page. Thanks for watching.